So good morning, everybody. My name is Beatriz Gutierrez, and I'm the president and CEO of CONNSTEP, an affiliate of CBIA. I'm really, really excited this morning to be joined by these three very, very energetic and powerful leaders of Connecticut manufacturing. So we have Marietta Lee with the Lee Company. We had Brittany Isherwood from Burke Aerospace, and then we have Jill Meyer from Bead company. So one thing that we heard a lot early is this idea that we gotta be thinking about manufacturing in a different way. We are thinking about the digital factory. We're thinking about Industry 4.0, the shortage that we have in labor, all these issues in supply chain. And I think it's so exciting to look at a total different way to approach these problems and really lead us through. So I'm going to start with just a general question for the three of you. From the conversation early, it captured my mind this idea that for the first time, technology has enabled us to have 5 generations into the workforce. So if you think about it, we have people in their 70s that still can contribute in manufacturing in the 80s. And now we have our Gen Zs coming into the workforce, those under 25. So when you think about 3 generations are into our workforce today. So as you look at your companies, as you look at the future, I just want your thoughts on how do we incorporate that kind of diversity, age diversity, into the workforce. Maria?
Yeah, I mean, we have employees that are over 70 years old. We have employees that are 20 years old. And as everyone in this room probably knows, if you have a technology problem, you go to your teenager, right, to help answer your question and get you back on your email or whatever you have. And so we are seeing certainly the younger generation embrace technology and embrace all the tools that are out there for us as manufacturers. And reluctantly, some of the older generation has come along, but I think there's so much transfer of knowledge from the older generation to the younger generation and so many fine-tuned skills that the older workers have that they've got to impart on the younger generation, regardless of the tools that are available to us. And we're doing a lot with technology. We're really focused right now on lights out manufacturing, so running our machines off hours without people in the plant. And that push certainly did meet with some resistance, but we have shown that it is economically very good for us to be running lights out manufacturing. And we have been able to move people that were in lower level positions up to higher level positions. So it's actually benefited everybody at the end of the day.
Great.
I can comment on that as well. So at Burke Aerospace, we're a 2nd generation family-owned company. And there's employees that have been here from the start, from when Tyler's father owned the company. And then we have employees that just started last year right out of college. So what we try to do is similar to Mariette, is just kind of partner the older generation with the younger generation to have, the transfer of knowledge, skills. We talk about tool makers and the limited resources that we have to pull from. So what we've tried to do internally is work with our resources that we do have and train the younger generation the skills that the older generation have that we're not able to pull from in the industry.
I'll just add that, facilitating the the multi-generations in our workplaces is communication. We have our older workforce that they want to leave knowing that things can continue on without them, and then the younger generation wants to learn as much as they can. Sometimes just shadowing isn't all that you can do. So trying to get the tribal knowledge out of their heads and trying to document as much as possible and trying to review the processes, that's important to us. And I think every time we have someone retire, we kind of look at the position and retool it in the sense that who are we going to hire? How does technology play a role? And maybe it morphs to be something different than it started. And I think that as you do that with each employee that you do that with, you slowly evolve and the workforce evolves with it.
So that's an interesting segue into this thinking that we gotta lead with cultural change, correct? So we're requiring this new environment to really bring all the tools of change management and culture. And I know you did a lot of that in your company, both when you took your position and then through this COVID situation. So maybe you can share with us some of those tools that you brought into your organization to really bring change and lead to crisis?
So I'll start with kind of pre-COVID, because I think that's what put us in a position to be successful during COVID. And that was that when I first, let me just paint you a picture of what it looked like when I first came to the company. The average age was 62. It was a lot of men in the organization. And sometimes I think, as silly as this sounds, having one woman or one younger person, then more will come. So it's kind of like it takes one, and that's why sometimes family businesses can go from generation to generation, because if they can't get any young people or women, then you just have a daughter, or you you make them. But everyone was very siloed. All the departments just did their own thing, and the org chart was a bit strange. It was kind of the head, and it was everybody underneath them. And it didn't seem like there were teams, and there wasn't a lot of communication. So one of the first things we did was just have kind of weekly stand-up meetings, just touching base and getting everybody on the same page. And maybe I'm hearing what you're working on, and you're hearing what I'm working on. And that got stale after a year, but that first year of just communicating, and someone in accounting who never sees someone in engineering, just that sort of communication was huge. And then another thing we did was a company-wide DISC assessment. And of course, in manufacturing, you're going to have a lot of people, left-brain people, data-driven, analysis. But if you don't have the people, and you don't have people that are also right-brained and creative, then what you end up having is a bunch of introverts siloed again. So one thing we do is when we hire, we do the DISC assessment. So of course, when we did the original DISC assessment, everyone except maybe me was in this one quadrant, and then we were just cognizant of it. And then we learned how people like to be managed and how people manage others. So that was something that I think helped with the original culture shift. And just that the culture shift takes years, not days or weeks or months. And just that I'm really proud of how we've evolved today, because there's so much team building and communication, and the org chart looks very different, and we've got teams, and we've got a real sense of empowerment, and we've got young people. So
any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, to comment on that as well. So we took the theory behind scaling up, where we started the daily huddles. So previous to Burke Aerospace, I was at GE Aviation in Lynn, Massachusetts. So we had an organization of 1,000 people. So it was critical that we had our daily huddles. So I try to take the things that worked at that organization and implement them at Burke Aerospace. So we have a daily meeting. We have 2 locations, so it's digitally, it's virtual. So we have our location in South Carolina and Connecticut. We're all on the same page. We all talk about, okay, what are the priorities? What is everyone, if anyone has any stuck items, things that they need help with. We address them first thing in the morning, so that, we create the team environment, and we also create the support structure. Even though we have, 2 locations on, many miles apart, they can still help each other.
When I think about culture and change, I sort of think about one side of the business being the manufacturing side. So we've got to stay current. We've got to be developing new products. We've got to be automating. We've just got to be keeping up with the industry. And then as a member of a family and a family business, I think of the other side of that, which is keeping it a family business and keeping the culture and keeping the traditions that were started by my grandfather and continued by my father and my uncle, who's now president and CEO of the company, and the importance of changing the company and keeping up technologically, but remaining a family business. And we like to think of ourselves as a small family business, and that's a lot of the reason we have longevity in our employees. Is we're very employee-centric. We're very focused on making our employees feel appreciated. We have one of the first profit-sharing plans in the country, so our employees participate in the benefits of our profits. And we it's a struggle to keep the culture of the small family business as we grow and advance technologically.
So you bring a very interesting point that I think is very, very common to our companies in Connecticut. This idea that a lot of our companies, particularly in our supply chain and in other areas, are family businesses, families that are, going from generation to generation. And that is at the core of their growth. And it goes beyond the ownership, correct? People that work in some of these companies is also generational workers. So how do we really go there and as we're bringing all this change, try to engage that group, the employees, not only the family, but the employees into, yes, we're a family business, but we gotta, and we have this very strong legacy, but we gotta move forward.
I guess I would say, I agree with that. You want to honor the legacy, and like Marietta had said, you don't want to change the good parts of the culture by trying to evolve the culture. So you want to make sure that your core values and your core principles are obviously remain intact. But I think it's also about painting the vision, and I think there's a lot of credibility in the vision when you have a family company that's been around a long time that can show historically you've done what you've said you were going to do, or historically you've painted a vision and you achieved the vision. So you start with that credibility, which is really helpful, and then you can paint a wonderful vision that might seem a little crazy to some of your employees at the time. But I mean, we just did that recently with EOS. We painted this 10-year picture and it had a 3-year target, and then we actually met our 3-year target. We're meeting our 3-year target at the end of this year. So we were able to show them not only are we doing what we said we were going to do, but we're ahead of schedule. So that's really exciting. So I think that as a family, if you involve your employees in where you're going, I think that's helpful.
So I think I'm going to ask Brittany the reverse of that question, which is now you're coming into a company that is a family business with a very strong tradition, and you're coming from the outside, correct?
Yeah.
And you come from a big company history, GE, etc. So what tools do you bring in to really get engagement from both the the family, the ownership, and the employees?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, I came in from GE. I don't have any relationship to the Burke family. So, I was an outsider coming in. And, the great thing is having an owner who's open to change and open to ideas outside of what he has seen, for the past 30 years with his family. So what I tried to do is recruit employees really from Pratt & Whitney and GE. So those are our customers. We want to make sure that we're aligned with what they need and what they want, and who better know that than employees that came from there. So our staff consists of people from both companies that bring in a lot of skills and a lot of ideas that came from those companies that worked successfully. So we're going to continue to grow on that, and I think having people come from big business into the family business is, it's eye-opening, because you realize the impact you can make on every decision that you make, where you may have not felt that at a large company.
So when we're talking about these customers, and you kind of guide us there, Connecticut is great on our supply chains, correct? We're in a state that recognizes that we have 3 large OEM that fuel a lot of products and innovation around. And for that, obviously, we have to have very, very, very strong supply chain and small companies that serve that market. So now that we have gone through COVID and we have really uncovered how vulnerable those supply chains are, when you're thinking about that in your companies, and how do you continue to serve this customer in your markets, what are some of the tools that you're using on a day-to-day to kind of get back to normal? Yeah,
I mean, one thing right off the bat is having a relationship with your customers and knowing their next step, maybe before they even know what it is. I make sure that I talk to our largest customers every single day. There isn't a day that doesn't go by that I doesn't talk to somebody at GE or Pratt & Whitney. Their schedules are fluctuating so quickly that it could change from one morning to the next. The start of COVID, we lost I don't know. I mean, the industry in aerospace lost 30% right off the bat, and we were 80% commercial aerospace at the start of COVID, so it was important for us to be able to pivot and also, support our customer without losing our business. So we worked directly with GE and Pratt to pivot into the military sector. So we went from commercial aero into more on the military side. But I would say the biggest thing that I rely on is the relationship. If that relationship isn't there, then they're not going to care about us as a supplier. A lot of the feedback that we get from our customers is, hey, we feel like you guys are on the same team as us because you are already coming up with solutions for us before we even have to ask. So I would say, keeping that tight relationship and knowing what your customers need is critical to help the supply chain.
Yeah, I would say we try to treat our suppliers very well. We pay in a timely fashion. So we hope that at the end of the day, when there's a supply chain issue, maybe we will get preference over some of their customers that don't pay in a timely fashion. But we're talking to our customers on a daily basis as well and adjusting timelines and things like that. But we are starting to see supply chain issues, not just little ones, but big ones, and trying to buy materials in advance. We don't want to create a toilet paper run on bar stock, but right. We're trying to set ourselves up for success as we continue on. But look, you can't stop the world for 18 months and expect it to start back up again without some hiccups. So hopefully this is a hiccup and we'll get through this in short order. But there certainly are going to be some challenges in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon and Apple, I think, just posted their third quarter earnings. Like, they're struggling with it, and they're the top innovators in the country. So, I mean, we're less than 50 people at Bead, and we're not going to be able to pivot and create some sort of alternative material out of dandelion root or anything. We need metal, so we've got some gaps. But one of the things we're doing is, trying to leverage our relationships with our larger customers who they have more leverage with some of our material suppliers. So it's one option.
So one thing that comes to mind looking at the panel, and it's obvious, they're all women. Women are famous for being able to multitask. We are able to handle a lot of things at the same time. How do you think that cultural experience as a female plays into how you approach managing crisis and managing your companies?
I mean, I think it's manufacturing anyways. Men, women, doesn't matter. You have to be able to multitask. You wake up in the morning, you come to work, there could be, a flood in your facility, or there could be a machine down, or you have an employee issue, or you have a raw material issue. It's being able to, have what's coming at you and just react quickly. You can't spend a lot of time thinking about the answer. You can learn from your mistakes, but if you take too long to make a decision, that opportunity is going to be lost. So I think being able to, make a decision quickly with the limited information is really what's critical in a manufacturing role, woman or man.
I'll add that, I agree. I think I don't personally like to multitask because you feel a little frenzied. I think we're good at it as manufacturers because it takes a bit of grit to be able to say, just like Brittany was saying, yep. This is happening, and this is happening. They're happening at the same time. You've got to make the right decision. And so I just think it takes a little bit of courage, a little bit of grit, and yeah, you can find yourself balancing a bunch of issues, but you don't have a choice, right? You've got people counting on you.
And I would say women are traditionally known for being better multitaskers than men, but during COVID, I think everybody had to multitask. We were running businesses, we were arguing with the kids who were home from college who couldn't get the Wi-Fi to work, while having an employee issue. The employees couldn't come to work because they had childcare issues. I mean, we're better at it, but I think the guys got a lot of training.
Absolutely. So that's an excellent side into the next thing. So after COVID, so we're here in COVID still, but looking forward to a new normal per se. And there were a lot of learnings that we had. And I think one of the panelists earlier talked about how do we look at that manufacturing environment of the future being different and having to address different issues, like the idea of working from home or flexible schedule or different tools. So what are some of, what does that look like to you when you're thinking, what does the manufacturing place now or in the next 3, 5, 10 years looks like? What's your vision?
I'll just say, I think that the whole idea of leading through COVID, I think made the leaders and the managers at our company, at least, more empathetic. And manufacturing sort of has a stigma of, you get to work on time, you do your job, you go home. It's not sexy, it's not fun, but we get parts out the door, right? And I think COVID sort of turned that on its head because people came to work and they were scared. And we saw managers, supervisors, leaders, and employees all very vulnerable. And I think it sort of levelized the shop floor. It's not the senior management and the people running the machines. We all sort of met in the middle.
And I think one thing we implemented that was effective during COVID was, you have your typical Monday through Friday work week, 40-hour work week. But what we did to help, employees that maybe had to watch their child during the week is we made a Friday, Saturday, Sunday shift. So they worked 12-hour days and they worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so that they were able to be home with their family when they needed to, and we were able to adapt to that and really just kind of out of the box thinking, okay, how do we still get parts out the door with the employees we have without losing them? So being flexible to what people need, and it really comes down to having a relationship with your employees. That's what's going to keep your employees with you. If you don't have that relationship, they're going to just feel like they're here to punch a clock and produce a part, where there's so much more beyond that to keep an employee happy. And it's building that relationship with the employee, making them feel like they're part of a family, regardless if it's a family-owned business or not. I look at every employee as a family member to me, even though it's not my family business. But being flexible to, understanding what that employee is going through or what they need, and still being able to come into a manufacturing environment and support hardware going out the door.
And to your point, I mean, again, manufacturing, it was you have to get in at 6 and you leave at 4 and that's it. And people would come and say, can I have a flexible work schedule? I have kids. And I was like, we're manufacturing.
Right.
No.
No, like get daycare.
And we're not super flexible, but now we are a little bit more flexible. But I was following the news yesterday on Starbucks, and some of the things that they implemented yesterday, saying they're going to have a flexible work schedule. And I'm thinking, they make coffee. I mean, we need coffee in the morning. I don't know how we can be flexible with a work schedule at Starbucks, but I thought, you know what, if Starbucks can do it,
Right.
we could probably do it too. And so I think maybe it's opened our eyes to making a more family-friendly and worker-friendly environment in manufacturing, which, like I said, traditionally it was, these are your hours, and if you can't make it then, go find a job somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah, I think the full remote was difficult, but I think the hybrid is kind of where we've landed. And maybe it's minimally hybrid, 1 or 2 days a week versus more because of the nature of manufacturing. But I think it was important, and I do think it will help. I think it was talked about at the last panel. It will help with retention too, because it shows that as employers you value your employees' work-life balance, you value their needs, and I think at the end of the day, some people were being more productive at home than they were in the office, and it's just about managing distractions. And honestly, in both locations. And that's becoming more, I think that will help us with managing distractions just in general at the office and home, is this hybrid workforce. So we were kind of pushed into it, as Marietta said, but I don't think I would have believed if I hadn't seen it. So it was a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So one thing that, obviously is the first thing that we have to think as managers is retention, correct? And we kind of touch on some of those things. But the other piece is this attraction. And Connecticut, in the United States in general, but Connecticut has definitely the challenges of an aging workforce, birth rate that is low. But there is also this opportunity attracting diversity into companies, really getting manufacturing to be a place where you bring diversity of all kinds, diversity of thought, diversity of age, diversity of gender, diversity of ethnic diversity. So how are some things that you guys are doing in your companies to really leverage those environments and those ideas and to attract those type of populations?
I would say from just, from a woman perspective, what I try to do as a mentor is mentor other young women. I was in school for mechanical engineering, and when I was in college, I had no idea what the aerospace industry was. I just was in my fluid dynamics class, or I was in my lab class learning sheet metal, but I didn't really know what the end result of it was. So I think, as leaders, it's critical to have those mentorships so that you can tell other women about what you can do with an engineering degree. I went to school for mechanical engineering, came out, was an engineer for a while, and then, fast forward 15 years, I'm a president of an aerospace company. Never thought that would be my career path ever, but you can take your engineering degree and go into business development, as I did, and learn the whole, with the technical skills going into a business development meeting is much more effective than just maybe having a business degree, right? So you have a variety of ways to get involved in the industry, not only in aerospace, but in medical devices or in any type of manufacturing, really. But having those mentorships, making sure I spend the time developing those relationships, and even if it's just 1 or 2 people a year, then that 1 or 2 people, they'll go and talk to their friends, and say, hey, I had an intern that I was a mentor of, and I want her to go back and use those skills and her experience to get other women wanting to be involved. So it's the down trickle effect there.
So yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's a sort of a long-term solution. 20 years ago, when I started in manufacturing in Connecticut, if you said 20 years from now you're going to be on an all-female panel at the CBIA thing, I would have said that there aren't enough women in CBIA to be on this panel. Like, that's just not going to work. So I think it's baby steps along the way, and things that we do now, like mentorships and things like that, that's going to pay off in 20 years. And I don't think we can go out and say, we need to hire a whole slew of female engineers and machinists and all of that and have that come to fruition in 6 months. I think we're planting the seeds for a more diverse workforce in 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Beyond women, correct? So that's the critical part. So beyond women, beyond gender, beyond political thinking, or et cetera, truly diverse. And I think part of the thing that we will agree in this room is that manufacturing gets a bad rep. It's the brand per se sounds like it's dirty, sounds like it's old and complicated, full of older people. So when we go and talk about it with others, for example, Jill, how do you, if you open houses, things like that, what is the message that you want to give the community about manufacturing today?
Well, we just did a plant tour yesterday with students from M. O'Brien Technical School, and there was a ton of diversity in there in Steve Orlowski's precision machining class, and there was almost half ladies in the group, so that was exciting. So bringing them into our shop and having them see that more than half of our machine operators are ladies was cool. And then we had we had a machine operator that had grown to be a quality technician, and then we have a customer service rep that we're growing into a supply chain role. We had them join us on the tours and mill around. So we're showing them what it looks like. We're showing them where it can be, and they're shedding light on what it could look like as well, because of the interest that we're seeing coming through the schools. I mean, the seed has been planted. We should continue to plant it, but I can already tell that the seed has been planted, and it's really exciting to see the energy and the questions and the engagement coming from the students during these tours, more so than maybe the other visitors at times.
So, in reverse, so I was talking to Brittany earlier, and we were saying that, being an engineer, I'm an electrical engineer, being an engineer, you have this idea of the work you're going to be doing, but it opens so many opportunities, correct? So having that technical background allows you to go into business, into sales, into relation manager, economic development, etc. How about the reverse? Because I was very interested in your background. So you did not start in the STEM, you started in communications, and somehow you got into engineering. So tell us a little more about that.
So, So I, by trade, I'm an attorney. I got out of law school and went into journalism and was doing largely legal journalism. I couldn't get out of Connecticut fast enough. I was in Washington, D.C. The family would say, do you want to come work for the company? And I said, live in Westbrook and make miniature hydraulic valves? Bye-bye. No way. But a story for another day, I ultimately decided to come back to Connecticut and work in the family business, which was probably the best decision I ever made. And I think the law degree, much like an engineering degree, it sets you up for success in other areas. And some of those skills have translated and some have not, for sure. But I think there are plenty of engineers at very high levels in our company that probably on a day-to-day basis don't use their engineering degree, but have been able to parlay it into a management position.
And one more thing to mention on that, just so we talk about having like really fancy degrees, right? A law degree, an engineering degree. One thing I want to also promote in our company is you don't have to have that prototypical degree to be successful, right? You can be a machinist and then learn the skills, learn the foundation, and become an engineer without an engineering degree, right? You can take the courses that are offered throughout the state. So I want to make sure that doesn't shy students away from it. College might not be for everybody, but you can still be very successful in the manufacturing environment without the fancy degree.
Right, I think that's so important too. At our company, we have a couple people who started entry-level position, and now 20 years later, through a tuition reimbursement program at our company, they worked their way up through the manufacturing floor, went back to school, got a degree, and now are the senior leaders of the company, which I think is terrific. And I think the homegrown aspect of that is a testament to our businesses and the field of manufacturing.
Such an important point, because when we're thinking about attraction and recruiting and also retaining people in these companies, what you just mentioned, correct? That opportunity to start in manufacturing at any level of the organization and be able to make a life and a career in companies that support that, obviously, provide that environment for that growth and those opportunities to happen that are so, so important. So changing a little bit, we are in an environment where everything is changing. So, it's fast, it's dynamic. I would have to say that personally, I couldn't be so more excited about Connecticut and its manufacturing, because we got everything we need right now to really grow. There's technology, human capital, momentum, federal and state interest and support, and so forth. But then there's also threats, correct? We talk about the supply chain issues that we're all facing, the labor shortage that we have talked a lot today, cybersecurity threats, etc. So what wakes you up at night when you're thinking about your companies?
All of the above. Everything depends on the night, depends on the hour. I mean, cybersecurity has been, our company personally was affected by an attack that shut us down. And that's terrifying. I think, COVID coming back is terrifying. There's things that I think all of us in this room are probably awake most nights thinking about. But I'm very optimistic about the future of manufacturing in this state, and I think I was thinking about it on the drive here, and this is going to sound really strange and horrible to say, but I think in a way COVID helped Connecticut. Connecticut did very well through COVID. We've proven that we are a leader among states, And I think if we can weather COVID, we can certainly encourage and support our manufacturers.
I agree. COVID gave us courage, for sure. What keeps me up at night is data, I think. Not having enough, having way too much. The whole digital transformation that was talked about earlier. Some companies haven't started at all. Some companies are knee deep. Some companies like ours, we've started, but we're still, working on our strategy. We're still looking into all the different technologies available. I think it's great that we have help like from CONNSTEP and CCAT and the different organizations in the state. And I think more people need to take advantage of that, because I think what keeps me up the most at night is not staying ahead of those things of the digital transformation and the digital journey, and being stuck behind or getting lost in all of it, because it's intimidating. And I think for small businesses especially, we have to make the decision, okay, I have a bunch of machines that are down. Do I repair those with the money I was going to use to invest in new technology so that we can increase our capabilities and innovate? And it's just a decision you have to make every single day, and it can be tough.
Yeah, and I think for me, what keeps me up at night is just making sure we're prepared for the ramp up of the aerospace industry, right? They, based on Aero Engine News, which pulls data from GE and Pratt & Whitney on commercial engines, what they project is that, we're kind of at the bottom of it now, but, the slope is continuing, will continue to increase, but really skyrocket in 2023. So it's making sure that you have employees hired now, you start your training processes now. You look at machines, okay, what machines am I going to have to replace over the next couple years? What machines are going to make me more productive? In making sure that you're ready for that. So I think it's something that's always in my mind, and it's something that we're always working to, but it's an exciting problem to have, because I'm ready for it to spring back up.
Absolutely. So, we're coming up to the end, but one thing that I would love to have you is make a pitch to the next generation. Why manufacturing? If you had to meet that person, that 16-year-old that is trying to decide, where do I go with this? I'm in high school, I don't know what to do. Why manufacturing and why Connecticut?
Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking mine would be very simple. Do you want to work hard and make cool shit? And if you do, come do this, because it's, you want to be simple, you want to make it, big in life. You got to put in the time, you got to work your ass off, and you get to do pretty cool stuff throughout the process.
I would concur entirely. I think there's something very rewarding about finishing your day having made something, and not just push things around on a computer screen or written something or looked at the stock market or whatever, but to actually get your hands in there and make something that goes into our supply chain and defends our country, or flies people across the country, or whatever. I mean, you're contributing to the giant economic engine, and I think it's very rewarding.
I think it's collaborative too. I do think that young people want to work together towards something that they believe in. We always used to say, oh, the millennials want a seat at the table, they want a seat at the table. I think they want a voice at the table. And you can have a voice in manufacturing and not need to have a seat. They just want to be heard. So, the make cool shit thing was good too.
Yeah.
Go back to that.
So it goes back to this idea of mission, correct? Manufacturing brings together that idea. If you go to work and you're making something that helps someone or that provides a service, form, fit, and function, correct? It gets us there, it gets us excited, you see what you do. So it's been an extremely, extremely exciting time for me to talk to you and to learn about your careers in your companies. I wish we had more time. I hope you all have enjoyed meeting these three wonderful ladies and thinking about all they bring to our environment, our ecosystem, and so many more like them, correct? And that's the great thing about Connecticut. We're looking at a new generation of leaders coming into these companies, and we're ready for what you all are going to bring into our economy and into our sector. So thank you very much for being with us, and have a great day.